My fiancée tricked me into signing a prenup, then slept with her trainer. So I left and let her family find out through a lawsuit. I've always believed loyalty was the foundation of love, the kind of love that doesn't flinch when life gets messy. So when I met Ava, I thought I'd finally found that rare, steady kind of person who wouldn't walk away when things got hard. We met at a charity event my company sponsored. She was leading a warm-up session for volunteers, radiating energy that pulled people in like gravity. I remember standing there pretending to check emails just to watch her command the room with that confident, easy smile. When she spoke to me for the first time, it wasn't flirtatious, it was curious. "You're the quiet one who keeps everything running behind the scenes, aren't you?" she said, her tone playful but precise. It startled me how quickly she saw through my exterior. That was Ava direct, charming, disarming. Within weeks, we were texting every night. And within months, she had become the center of my world. She made me feel like the best version of myself, driven, capable, and loved without condition. She'd surprise me with post-it notes on my desk saying, "Don't forget you're incredible." I'd bring her coffee after her early morning classes, staying to watch her train her clients. Her discipline fascinated me. Her ambition matched mine in a way that felt like destiny. When she first said, "You make me feel safe," I believed her. I didn't realize safe to her meant control. Within a year, we moved in together, a cozy apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the city lights. I remember thinking, this is it, the start of forever. But if I had looked closer, I might have seen that she was already keeping parts of herself hidden behind those confident smiles. I didn't realize the woman I was falling for was already planning for the day she'd betray me. A year later, I proposed to Ava on the balcony of that same apartment. It wasn't extravagant, just us, the skyline, and a simple gold ring I'd spent months saving for. She cried, said yes through trembling laughter, and pulled me into one of those hugs that make you forget the world. For a moment, I believed everything in my life had finally aligned. When we told her parents, they reacted like it was a merger announcement instead of an engagement. Her father, Charles, was the type of man who measured worth in assets, not character. He shook my hand a little too firmly and said, "You've done well for yourself, son. Just remember, love's one thing, but security's another." I laughed it off, assuming he was joking. Ava just smiled and squeezed my hand under the table. Her mother, Linda, took over the planning instantly. She wanted an engagement party that reflected their family's standards. Within a week, she'd booked a hotel ballroom and hired a PR photographer, yes, for an engagement party. Ava brushed it off, saying, "That's just mom being mom. Don't let it freak you out." The night of the event felt like something out of a movie. String lights draped across the ceiling, champagne flowing endlessly, and her family's friends circling us with polished smiles. Ava looked breathtaking, confident, radiant, untouchable. She leaned over during a toast and whispered, "We're the perfect team, aren't we?" And in that moment, I believed it. But between the speeches and the laughter, I noticed her father and a man in a tailored gray suit speaking in hushed tones, glancing in my direction. When I asked Ava about it later, she brushed it off. Probably just business talk. That night, I went to bed feeling proud, but something in me, deep down, felt uneasy. I didn't know it yet, but the foundation of our perfect engagement was already being rewritten into a contract. One I wouldn't understand until it was too late. A few weeks after the engagement party, Ava came home with a leather folder tucked under her arm. She was wearing her usual gym gear, hair still damp, face glowing from her workout. "Hey babe," she said casually, setting the folder on the counter. "Can we talk about something boring but important?" I remember laughing. "That sounds dangerous." She smiled that warm, practiced smile and said, "It's just a prenup. My parents insist. It's nothing against you. It's just how they do things." I froze. I wasn't rich, not even close. My savings were modest, my job stable, but unglamorous. "Why would you need a prenup with me?" I asked, half joking, half wounded. Ava tilted her head, her tone soft but firm. "Because they've seen too many bad marriages. It's just a formality, a piece of paper to keep the lawyers off their backs. You know I trust you." She sat beside me, tracing small circles on my hand. The way she looked at me, calm, reassuring, disarmed every instinct screaming in my head. I wanted to be the kind of man who didn't need reassurance. But the truth was, I loved her too much to say no. No lawyer, no second opinion, just my signature and blind faith. Later that night, she kissed me like everything was normal. We cooked pasta, laughed, planned honeymoon destinations. She said, "See? That wasn't so bad." But the next morning while she showered, I glanced at the folder still sitting on the counter. I opened it, just curious. The legal language blurred together, but one clause stood out. In the event of infidelity, financial claims from the signing party are void. I remember my stomach tightening. It didn't mean much to me then, but one day it would mean everything. I should have read it twice. A few months after signing the prenup, Ava started changing. At first it was subtle, a distracted glance at her phone, longer gym sessions, and new excuses for staying late. "I've got extra clients," she'd say, with that perfectly calm smile, brushing past my questions. I tried to chalk it up to stress, assuming wedding planning and her career were taking a toll. But the more I ignored it, the heavier the tension became. One evening, I stopped by her gym unannounced, just to surprise her. That's when I saw it. Her car parked in a dim corner, lights off, windows fogged from the night chill. She wasn't inside alone. A shadow moved in the back seat. My stomach sank. I drove past without confronting her, pretending nothing happened. Telling myself I was imagining things at home. She would casually mention new projects and training schedules that didn't line up with reality. I began noticing receipts for dinners, small gifts, and extra fitness gear, items she never mentioned. When I asked, she'd laugh softly and say, "You're paranoid." "I'm just busy. You know, I love you." Her family still adored me, of course. Her mother would gush about how responsible and devoted I was. Her father would nod approvingly at dinner, complimenting my career sense. Meanwhile, Ava's subtle evasions became my nightly obsession. I'd stare at my phone, waiting for texts that might never come. Wondering if I was losing my mind one night, I remember sitting on the balcony, staring at the city lights, and thinking, this doesn't feel like love anymore. Something's off, and it's not me. But I told myself I'd wait. Observe, and trust that the woman I fell in love with wasn't capable of lying. Little did I know, the cracks were only getting wider, and the betrayal waiting in the shadows was about to hit harder than anything I could imagine. I started noticing things I could no longer ignore. Little cracks in the picture-perfect life I thought I was building. Receipts for dinner dates I hadn't been invited to. New gym memberships with names I didn't recognize, and late-night texts she would hide when I walked into the room. When I asked about them, she'd flash that same disarming smile and say, "It's nothing, babe. You're overthinking again." I felt torn. Part of me wanted to trust her. To believe the woman who laughed with me in the morning and kissed me goodnight couldn't possibly be lying. But another part, the part that had been quietly observing for months, knew something was off. Her family's behavior didn't help. They treated me like a son-in-law, in waiting, praising every little thing I did. I felt trapped between the love I still believed in and the growing suspicion that I was just a prop in someone else's plan. One evening, I saw a text pop up on her phone from Liam, her trainer. It wasn't just friendly, it was intimate. I froze, staring at the message as if the screen could somehow lie to me. "Can't wait to see you tonight," it read. I wanted to confront her immediately, but I didn't. I waited, swallowed the lump in my throat, and pretended I hadn't seen it. Every dinner, every smile, every whispered "I love you" started to feel like a lie. I questioned myself constantly. Am I paranoid? Am I imagining this? Or is the person I trusted most in the world betraying me? I kept telling myself I needed proof. I needed certainty before making a mistake I could never take back. Little did I know, the moment that certainty arrived would shatter everything. I thought I knew about her, and about us, and in the back of my mind, a quiet voice whispered, "If this is happening now, it's only going to get worse." It was a Thursday night. I remember because I had planned to surprise Ava with dinner after her last client. I wanted it to be simple, homemade pasta, her favorite wine, candles flickering on the counter. I parked outside her gym a little early, smiling at myself for being thoughtful. That smile died the second I saw her car in the far corner. Windows fogged, engine off. Something felt wrong. My heart started hammering. I walked closer, each step heavier than the last, and that's when I saw him, Liam, her trainer, hunched over, hands on her shoulders, and her head bent in a way that wasn't casual, that wasn't friendly. They were kissing. I froze, time slowing. The world narrowed to the two of them, oblivious, careless, betraying. Every memory of late nights, whispered excuses, and hidden texts came rushing back. I wanted to scream, to burst in and demand answers, but I couldn't. I turned, walked back to my car, and drove without a word. The city lights blurred, but I saw them everywhere, in every glowing sign, every passing street lamp. By the time I got home, my mind was a storm. I sat on the couch, staring at the prenup folder on the coffee table. I remembered the clause, the one about infidelity, voiding my financial claims. The thought hit me like a punch. She didn't just betray me emotionally, she had legally protected herself to do it without consequence. I stayed up all night, replaying everything. Her laugh, the way she leaned on me, the promises she made, they were all lies. And in that moment, I realized something. I wasn't just heartbroken, I was being set up. I didn't confront her that night. I didn't cry in front of her. I sat in silence, letting the weight of betrayal press down on me, knowing that nothing, no apology, no explanation, could undo what had just happened. And as I finally closed my eyes in the early morning hours, a thought settled deep in my chest. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. The next morning, Ava walked in like nothing had happened. Hair still damp from her morning shower, coffee in hand, smiling that same effortless, radiant smile. "Morning, babe," she said, setting the cup in front of me. My chest tightened. I had just witnessed the undeniable truth the night before, but she acted as if our life was untouched, as if I hadn't seen the world shift under my feet. "Morning," I replied softly, keeping my voice calm, hiding the storm inside me. I watched her sit down, scrolling through her phone, pretending our apartment wasn't a cage of lies. I realized then that she had perfected the art of the mask, a performance so convincing it could make you question your own instincts. She talked about wedding plans, honeymoon destinations, even jokingly suggested we should start picking out paint colors for the nursery. My stomach twisted. The audacity, the sheer control. I wanted to explode, to yell, to demand the truth, but I stayed quiet. Instead, I began recording snippets of our conversations, taking screenshots of messages, noting her schedule. Everything I could use later. Her words and gestures were now weapons I had to document. Each casual laugh, every sly smile, every time she leaned on me in front of her friends, it all felt like betrayal in slow motion. Even when she tried to cuddle that evening, I stiffened. I wanted her warmth, but my trust had been stripped away. Later, when I confronted her indirectly about her late-night absences, she looked at me like I was crazy. "You're imagining things again," she said, brushing off my concern with that practiced, soft tone. That's when it hit me. She had done this before. She was untouchable. At least until I decided I wasn't going to be a passive participant in my own life anymore. And in the quiet that night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her in anger. I was going to wait, to watch, to collect everything, because one day she would learn that truth has a way of finding those who refuse to run from it. Over the next few weeks, I withdrew. Outwardly, I was still the attentive fiancé, helping her pick wedding venues, laughing at her jokes, agreeing on colors and seating charts. Inside, though, I was sharpening my focus, paying attention to everything she said, every text she sent. Every late-night training session, I started keeping a meticulous record. Dates, times, messages, receipts. Even the security footage from the gym where I suspected she met Liam. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I let her believe I was oblivious. And the more I acted normal, the more reckless she became. She'd brag about her private sessions with Liam, laughing softly about how understanding I was. Every careless word she threw into the open became another piece of evidence I could use. Late at night, I would sit alone. The prenup clause about infidelity suddenly had purpose. What she thought was protection would become the trap. I realized I had leverage, legal and emotional, that could hit her and her family in ways she never imagined. I began planning the next steps carefully, consulting my lawyer quietly, making sure every I was dotted, every T crossed. For the first time since our engagement, I felt a flicker of control. Ava's betrayal had been devastating, but it had also illuminated a path. I didn't have to plead, beg, or fight blindly. I could strike strategically, and yet, every night, as I sat in the quiet of our apartment, I felt the weight of what I was about to do. Not just the emotional toll, but the realization that someone I loved and trusted had deliberately planned to deceive me. The calm I projected to the outside world was now a mask, a necessary one, because the storm I was about to unleash would need patience, precision, and silence. The real lesson is waiting to be learned, and she won't see it coming. The morning of the wedding rehearsal, I woke up with a weight in my chest that made it hard to breathe. Every plan, every laugh, every dream we had built together now felt like a cruel illusion. I packed a small bag quietly enough for a few days, and left a note on the kitchen counter. "You broke us long before today. I can't do this anymore." I didn't say goodbye. I didn't explain. I simply walked out the door, feeling like the ground beneath me had disappeared. My car ride was endless, the city streets blurring into a haze of headlights and street lamps. Memories of her lying, her laughing with Liam, and her effortless deception filled my mind. I felt rage, heartbreak, and despair all at once. When I reached a quiet motel on the outskirts of town, I sank onto the bed, phone buzzing nonstop with calls and texts from her and her family. I ignored them all. I let the silence envelop me, because for the first time in months, I was listening to my own thoughts instead of hers. I had lost trust, love, and the life I thought I had. The prenup, the lies, the infidelity, it all crushed me. But amidst the wreckage, a small, cold clarity formed. If I was going to rebuild, I couldn't cling to anger or desperation. I had to act with precision. And yet, the pain was suffocating. I pressed my forehead into the pillow, trying to shut out the memory of her smile, her words, her touch. How could someone so familiar, so beloved, betray me so completely? The betrayal wasn't just a wound. It was a chasm that swallowed me whole. I didn't know what the next step would be, but I knew one thing. Walking away was just the beginning. And deep down, a quiet, simmering thought whispered, "They will all find out. They just don't know it yet." Weeks later, I filed the lawsuit. I didn't send her a single text, didn't call, didn't make a scene. The evidence I had collected over months, screenshots, messages, receipts, gym check-ins, even videos, was meticulous. Every bit of proof built a story no lawyer could ignore. I wasn't seeking revenge and anger. I was seeking justice, the kind that leaves no room for excuses. The day her parents received the legal notice, everything shifted. I stayed away, watching from the shadows as panic replaced the usual confidence in their polished smiles. The documents spelled out the betrayal in black and white, backed by the very prenup she had manipulated to protect herself. The irony wasn't lost on me. The paper she thought would shield her became the weapon that exposed her completely. Her father called, voice shaking, trying to negotiate. Her mother demanded explanations. Ava herself called relentlessly, leaving messages laced with guilt, anger, and disbelief. I didn't respond. I let the process speak for me. I let the evidence, the law, and the truth unravel the life she had tried to control. Every day, news of the case spread through her social circles. Friends, colleagues, even some distant family. Rumors of her affair, the manipulation, and the audacity of her actions traveled faster than I could have imagined. It was uncomfortable to watch, sure, but I felt a strange calm. This wasn't petty revenge. This was exposure, and it was necessary. As I watched her empire of appearances begin to crack, I finally felt the weight on my chest start to lift. The betrayal had been devastating, but justice, quiet, deliberate, undeniable justice, was now unfolding. I realized that silence, patience, and strategy could be far more powerful than confrontation. And in that quiet, controlled storm, I whispered to myself, let them hear it in court. Let them all see exactly who she really is. After the lawsuit was served, Ava became frantic. Calls, texts, emails, all ignored. She tried every tactic, pleading, guilt-tripping, even threats. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Silence became my shield and my weapon. For the first time, I realized the power of stepping back, of letting someone else's actions speak louder than any words I could yell. Her trainer, Liam, vanished once the story hit her family and friends. Her carefully crafted world of lies began crumbling. Her parents, once untouchable in their social circles, faced whispers and judgment. Even her so-called friends distanced themselves. I watched it all quietly, from a safe distance. Realizing that revenge didn't have to be loud, Sometimes the quietest person in the room ends up the most formidable. Meanwhile, I began rebuilding my life. I took the settlement, small but enough, and started a new business. A clean slate, free from betrayal, manipulation, and lies. I found peace in discipline and focus, not in the chaos she had left behind. I would walk into the office each morning, the memory of betrayal still raw but tempered now with clarity. Every decision, every client interaction, was a reminder that I had regained control over my own life. Ava's empire of control was gone, and I hadn't lifted a hand to destroy her personally. I had let truth and justice do it. Sometimes, when I think about those dark nights, I shiver at the pain I endured. But I also feel the quiet satisfaction of knowing I didn't stoop to anger or desperation. I acted strategically, calmly, and it paid off. And as I finally closed that chapter, I realized the same patience and calm she mocked me for became the tool that reshaped everything. Months later, I ran into Ava at a cafe. She looked different, tired, worn eyes, hollow in a way that mirrored the chaos she had caused. She saw me, froze, and whispered almost regretfully, "I didn't think you'd really leave." I studied her for a long moment, remembering every lie, every betrayal, every sleepless night she had forced me through. My throat tightened, not with anger, but with the clarity of who I had become. "You didn't think I'd respect myself either," I said softly, almost matter-of-fact, and stood. I didn't linger. I didn't watch her crumble. I walked away, letting the world move around me. The city air felt different, lighter, sharper, full of possibilities I hadn't dared to imagine before. The man who had been blindsided, heartbroken, and humiliated was gone. In his place was someone stronger, deliberate, and untouchable in his own right. The revenge wasn't fireworks, wasn't public shaming. It was silence, strategy, and self-respect. Watching her empire of lies unravel on its own, knowing I had rebuilt without bitterness, was more satisfying than I could have imagined. Every quiet step I took away from her was a victory in itself. I found peace in knowing that justice doesn't need to be loud, it just needs to be inevitable. And as I moved forward, leaving the past where it belonged, I realized that the betrayal that had once broken me had also shaped me into someone I could finally be proud of. Sometimes, I still feel the weight of those months, the rawness of loss and deception, but I also feel the freedom of knowing I walked away. I reclaimed my life. And I let the truth speak louder than any confrontation ever could. And in that quiet victory, I finally understood the best revenge isn't about hurting them, it's about becoming someone they can't touch, someone unshakable, someone free.